As a woman, one of my primary concerns in this election is the future of the kind of what many people will describe as the trans issue and all the rest of it. For me, I feel very passionately that as a biological female, there are certain spaces that I want to go into and not have biological men be in those spaces, whether it's dressing rooms or whatever. I don't want my little boy, when he goes to school, to be told that if he's miserable, maybe it's because he's a girl, all those kind of things. I'm very passionate about those topics. They mean a lot to me. And I worry that if we have a Labour majority, I worry how much of those women's rights, for example, are going to be protected under him. What do you think?
I think that's a legitimate worry in terms of what's going to happen under a Labour government with a big majority. We already know, based on the things Labour have said, that they're going to continue to mainstream what we'd call gender ideology in the schools, the universities, and also other public institutions like the civil service. They've already said they're going to make it easier to transition your gender, for a boy to become a girl and a girl to become a boy. They're going to make it easier. They're going to remove the roadblocks. Yes, they say they've dropped the idea of gender self-identification, but actually they've just made clear they're going to remove a number of roadblocks related to that. And we also know that they are going to, I think, be quite easy at letting these radical activist lobbying groups and campaign groups into schools, which we've seen over the last few years, mainstreaming these wacky ideas, which, as the Cass review showed with regards to the National Health Service and looking at how these ideas have become deeply embedded in the NHS, they have no serious basis in science. This is a contested political belief system that we're exposing to kids. This is where I think Labour are weak, by the way. This is where I think Labour are very weak, because whenever I poll these ideas, you know, we should rename pregnant mothers pregnant persons, as an example. That's supported by 5% of the country. The SNP imploded partly because it massively overreached on these gender issues. Labour with a massive majority, with somebody like Harriet Harman overseeing an equalities agenda, somebody like Jess Phillips, who knows who's going to end up running this stuff. I'm very concerned, and I think lots of mums and dads out there feel the same way.
Well, I mean, we've got a situation now, we've got multiple nurses that are taking legal action against their NHS trust. They've got a communal changing area, if you like, and their trust policy is that people can identify essentially how they want. So these nurses have found themselves in a situation where some fella who calls himself Rose can now use these changing rooms. This Rose person is apparently simultaneously trying to get their girlfriend pregnant. And I think there's a few biologically male things that one can do that are any stronger than impregnating a female. But yet you can apparently do that and still declare yourself as a woman and access female changing rooms. I find it appalling. Aaron, your thoughts?
I would say that Keir Starmer's response to something in the last few days, which I wholly disagree with, is at odds with what Matthew's saying. So Keir Starmer has said that trans women with a gender recognition certificate, which has been in law since 2004, it's a legal certificate which allows a trans person, once they've transitioned, to change their birth certificate, I believe also their death certificate.
Which I don't agree with, by the way.
But that's been law for 20 years.
Yeah, but I don't agree with it.
No, that's fine. Just because you were saying this has happened under the Tories' watch. This has been law for a very long time. He is essentially saying that he disagrees with the piece of law that was introduced under the Tony Blair administration, and that, by law, says that a trans woman with a gender recognition certificate, GRC, should be recognised as a man in all legal circumstances. What Starmer has said is that even a trans person with one of those certificates, which are incredibly hard to get, by the way, you need a medical panel to sign off on them.
He's going to make that all easier.
Yeah, he's going to make that a lot easier.
But we can talk about that. But right now he's saying that somebody with that certificate can't go into a woman's toilet, which is a million miles away from what
hang on. First, let's just be clear about what they're going...
And where the Labour Party leadership have been on this.
Let's just be clear exactly about what they're going to do. So they're going to remove what is currently the requirement that you have to live in your new gender for 2 years before applying for the GRC. They're now going to change that and have a 2-year reflection period whereby it will be moved after the GRC, getting the certificate. And the second thing they're going to do is, instead of being signed off by a panel of medical experts and lawyers, there's now going to be one GP, one doctor, signing off your application for a GRC. So essentially what they're doing is they're making it easier for people, much like the SNP did in Scotland, by the way, when they said 16-year-olds should be able to change their gender with very little supervision, with very little guidance. Labour are making this process a lot easier. So they're mainstreaming the idea of gender ideology.
But it doesn't make any sense, because you're saying that, you're making that point. At the same time, Keir Starmer's saying that somebody with that certificate can't go in a woman's toilet.
I think with a massive...
That's what he said.
But
so it's completely incoherent, but I'm not suggesting...
I don't believe the Labour Party, though. I think with a massive majority, with the activist base bearing down on them, I think we're going to have wokery on steroids for the next 5 years, and I think this whole gender issue is going to explode to new heights. I think it's just going to be mainstreamed across the board.
But he's saying he disagrees with something which has been in law for 20 years.
Well, Starmer does, but we know lots of people on the front bench don't disagree with it at all.
Keir Starmer has flip-flopped around on this issue like I don't know what. Yeah. He goes from 1 minute saying that you cannot say that only women have a cervix. He then goes on to say that there's whatever percentage of women actually have a penis.
99.9.
He then gets a nudge and a little whisper in his ear that because of the likes of people like J.K. Rowling and all the rest of it, that this is a big issue, a contentious issue for people. So then what they're asking for is that they want people to, politicians to be saying that single-sex spaces are based on biological sex. So whatever your harebrained notion of your own gender may or may not be, whether that's supported by a GRC or not, that shouldn't remove the fact that a single-sex space literally means a biological single-sex...
It is different, Michelle, though, because we've been talking about this for several years, about self-ID. Somebody with a gender recognition certificate is not about self-ID. They are legally recognised under law as a woman, and that's been the case for 20 years. Yes,
but this is what a lot of the campaigners will push back against, because you can still keep your penis. I'm sorry, everybody. You can still keep that and have a GRC. So a trans person, a biological male with a penis can have a GRC and come into a female changing room. And there's many, many women, including myself, that are not comfortable with that. And my heart, for example, goes out to the likes of those nurses who have to get changed before and after their shifts and have some fella with his tickle-tackle in the same changing room as them. I think it's appalling.
Let me put quickly, because I know somebody, a trans person, they've got a GRC, they've transitioned, they're 70 years old, anatomically they've changed, they have female hormones. What toilet should they use? Well, they're meant to go into a gents.
You're asking me a question about toilets, and my position is I do not believe you can change your sex. I don't share that notion. I don't buy into gender ideology.
But I think it's not about self-ID. This is somebody who doesn't have a penis. They've got women's hormones in their body. They look to the whole of the world as a woman.
Probably turned their penis inside out and attached silicone bags to them. That, to me, doesn't make you a female. And I know it's
what toilet should they use?
Harsh.
I mean, that's the key question. This is a very small subset. We're not talking about self-ID. We're talking about a very small subset of the population that has that certificate.
Well, if they're not a biological female, then I really don't think they should be in the biological females' toilets.
So what if
unless it's a unisex? Well, I'm not going to go around pulling the pants down, am I? Upon entry to a toilet, it's a principal point. If you have a penis and you are a biological man, you should not be in a biological woman's space. It's an incredible encroachment, infringement on our privacy, our rights. It's not for me. And you might think that I'm being cruel or unkind.
Right, I think the law where it was in 2004, it seems like a sensible place to be. There's a threshold you have to meet, in which case you get a certificate, in which case the law sees.
But as we said, that threshold is being weakened and will be weakened under a Labour government.